All the BBC shows at that time were always recorded with a live audience, and it was kind of understood that you didn't use any kind of sweetening, you didn't use any kind of canned laughter. We did sometimes, and I'll tell you what we did. Occasionally, you'd have something on film, and the audience would, of course, have to watch that on the monitors, and then that would cut back to the studio, and the audience would still be watching the monitors, and they would fail to see that we were supposed to be back in the studio. And sometimes you would find that there would be a complete silence after a joke because the audience is looking in the wrong place, or they're still looking in the studio when they should be looking up the monitor. And then we used to take one of our own laughs off the soundtrack and put it in the place, if it needed it. But I said to the actors very early on, I had a theory about this. I said, we're not going to play this at the pace of the studio audience. I said, we don't have to. In the theatre, you have to go at the pace of the audience because they can't hear you otherwise. You have to wait for that laughter to curve, the laughter curve to come down. Then you start speaking again. But in television, you have this wonderful thing called a microphone that's there. And if you talk into the mic while the audience is still laughing, then the wonderful thing is that people at home can hear it. So you can keep the pace up. And when people are watching at home, there's only one or two of them. It's not like being in an audience in a theatre, so they don't laugh as much. So what you have to do is play it faster when people are at home in ones and twos than you ever would if you were doing it in front of a full audience. So we deliberately ignored the studio audience and tried to play it faster than was right for the studio audience in order to get the sufficiently rapid pace of the people at home. The second show that we did, which was about the builders, was performed almost entirely to complete silence. And it was not a very comfortable experience. And afterwards, I was a bit disturbed, and people said, no, it was a funny show. Actually, I think it's the least good of the 10 shows, the 12 shows, but, they said, no, it was fine, it was funny. I said, well, what about the audience? And they said, well, we don't know. We found out later that a large number of people from the Icelandic Broadcasting Corporation had visited the BBC that day, and the BBC were always helpful to shows like mine, thought, wouldn't it be nice if we put all 70 of them in the front row? And they sat there being very pleasant and charming and Icelandic and not laughing at all, just this faint whiff of cod coming from the front row, which had we recognised might have given us the explanation. And I've got to say, it was a pretty tough recording, and it needed quite a lot of editing to tighten it up.